Welcome to Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, Lisa Daughtery from Free to Worship Revival Center in Soddy Daisy, Tennessee. Today we're going to be talking to Paul Lee from Fellowship of Christian Peace Officers, FCPO, and we're going to be talking about how their ministry supports officers and their families. Welcome, Paul.
Well, thank you for having me, Lisa.
It's a pleasure to have you today. Can you tell us the history of FCPO?
Well, we have a rich history. We've been around for over 43 years. We started back in the early 70s in Los Angeles Police Department. There were two police officers there that actually thought they were the only Christians in the LAPD, and they didn't know each other. And during a Bible conference, they accidentally bumped into each other. And they realized right then that their Christian population had doubled in the LAPD from 1 to 2. So as they were standing there talking and really kind of rejoicing, they got to looking around, and they said, well, he's LAPD and he's LAPD. And so they start bringing these other police officers that they find at this conference together, and they decided they'd start meeting on a regular basis to do two things, to read Scripture and pray. And from that small group of dedicated police officers, FCPO was born.
That's awesome. What's the biggest issue that prompted the need for FCPO? Well,
they didn't have statistics back then, but they could see what's going on. We have statistics now, and nothing's really changed.
Right.
We have a 75% divorce rate among married law enforcement officers nationwide. We have 40% that are involved in domestic violence. Now, that doesn't really mean that they're beating their spouse or their mate or anything like that. But when they come home and they're trying to readjust back to the family life after seeing everything they see on the job, they become snippy. They may come home angry. When they start realizing that the fun's worn off and that they can't save the world, they become very protective over their family. You're not going here. You're not going to do this. I mean, and that's almost a form of abuse.
Right.
It makes for terrible living. 25% nationally abuse alcohol and prescription drugs just to self-medicate. And then the tragic statistic is that every 17 hours, a law enforcement officer, a former law enforcement officer in this country commits suicide.
Oh, wow.
And we don't have any solid data on this, but as we've looked and we've talked to cops all across the country, our best guess, and it's just a guess, but our best guess is only about 3% of law enforcement in this nation are what we consider born-again evangelical Christians that live the same way they do on Sunday, Monday through Saturday, on the job and off the job.
So it's hard to distinguish work and home?
Yes.
Wow. What makes FCPO different from other Christian organizations?
Well, I guess it's our clientele. We minister to law enforcement across the country. And the thing about law enforcement is they work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. It's very hard to go to church.
All right.
Even those that come onto their police departments that are, very regular in their church, well, they can't get there because they have to work. Somebody has to be out there. And then there becomes a disconnect. Well, we try to bring the Christians in law enforcement together through chapters. And when we do this, we're using biblical truths to show them how to go out and operate biblically on the job daily. We've kind of coined this phrase, if we're not using biblical truths to go out and do our job, then whose truth are we using?
Right. There's only one truth,
There's only one truth.
Right. I completely agree to that. What's the community like in law enforcement? Are they close? Are the people close?
Oh, they're extremely close, and I laugh when I think about it because not everybody in there likes each other. You got people that get them as humans. They don't like each other, but don't do something to one of them because the others will come to their rescue.
Right.
And these men and women will die for each other. They don't go in with that mindset, but they will.
So it's sort of like a family.
It's a huge family.
That's wonderful. What caused you to become involved with FCPO?
Well, in October 16th, 1995, I had a life-changing experience with Jesus Christ.
Oh.
And after that, another Christian officer took me to my first FCPO meeting. And in that meeting, I sat down. Of course, you could tell the way I used to live, because when I walked in, the shocked look on everybody's face was, he's in the wrong room. So I sit down, and the gentleman that was running the meeting looked at me, and I didn't know him, and he said, "Paul, what brought you here?" Well, I just almost panicked. I thought, Lord, I'm not ready with a testimony. I don't know what I'm going to say. I wasn't prepared for this, but I told you I'd never deny you. So I just vomit my testimony out on all these guys. Wow. Starting back, with when the dog died, and all the way up, the long testimony. Well, when I finished, I was crying. All these guys were crying, Wow. And they were hugging on me. And I had an even newer family of believers.
Wow. When you have a relationship with Christ, it changes everything.
It changes everything.
What are some of the things that law enforcement officers witness?
Well, whatever you can think of that's bad, they'll witness. Mm-hmm. And let's go through 3 incidents in the last 2 years in our area. We had the terrible crash on I-75 where innocent people were killed.
Right.
We had a terrorist attack where innocent people were killed. We just had a massive bus crash where children were killed. Now, while we see it on the news and we see it for seconds and then it's off to something else, these men and women are there for hours.
Right.
The bodies don't get to be moved. They're having to take pictures and measurements, and they're doing all this stuff that they have to do because someday this is going to be in a court. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be an attorney trying to discredit everything that they say and everything that they've done. So they're there for hours. And then somebody has to pick up the carnage and move it. This is all first responders. It's not just really law enforcement. Somebody has to move the carnage and take it someplace. And while all this is going on, a lot of times there's cell phones ringing because word's getting out. It's coming on the news. Mm-hmm. And loved ones are calling their loved ones, except we know that these loved ones aren't going to answer.
Right.
And they take those memories home with them. That's what they hear at night when they're trying to sleep.
Right. That's why I was fixing to ask you, what kind of effect does it have on them? They don't just see it for even a few hours. They live with it, right?
No, they live with it. Mm. They live with it. Of course, that goes back to a lot of the self-medicating. And without Christ, where else do you go? Right. Those guys with Christ and through our chapters, they have each other. Mm-hmm. We've now linked them together. They can go to each other. They can pray. They can cry. They can do whatever they have to, but they can do it together. They don't have to be alone.
Right. Well, you mentioned 3 things, but they see this every day.
Every day.
How do they persevere through this? How do they keep their faith when they see these things?
Well, I guess it's kind of like Peter when all the disciples had left Jesus, and Jesus says, "You want to go too?" He said, "Well, we're going to go." Right. What else have we got?
Right.
That's the only hope that anyone has. And so these cops have that hope. Mm-hmm. And that's where they go with their faith. The guys that don't have that, they're the ones that struggle.
Right. How does FCPO reach out and work with the officers?
Well, we're not a cliquish ministry. I don't know how else to put it. There's a lot of good police organizations out there. Right. But these organizations usually take care of their members. Whereas FCPO, we minister to everyone. You don't have to be a member. Right.
Do you offer spiritual support?
We offer spiritual support. Sometimes we've provided some financial support.
Right.
The chapters can do that. If somebody's sick or in the hospital, we go to them and visit them. We have the ability, because we're a 501c3 ministry, to raise funds. If there's an injured officer out there and he needs something like a handicap ramp, we build it.
Right.
Go build it.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. What blessings have you witnessed through this ministry?
Well, I'll start with here in our area. We have a local foundation that helped us with this, helped fund it. We were sending married couples down to Windshape to marriage retreats.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was a pilot project just to see. These were all biblically based marriage retreats. And not everybody that went down there were Christians, but it was biblically based marriage retreats. And we did it for about 6 years. we sent, the last time we counted, and we've sent more since then, but we'd sent 468 couples
wow.
through these retreats. You remember the 75% divorce rate that I told you
right.
nationally? Well, when we added it up, we had lost 8 couples to divorce, so that's a 1.7% divorce rate. Now, some of these couples have been divorced before,
right.
you know, but they're not getting divorced now. We've had couples that attended these retreats that had already signed papers. This was the last resort, you know, and we're trying to teach them how to fight for their marriages. You know, don't give up, fight.
Right.
So that's a success story. We have a chapter that goes into impoverished neighborhoods, crime-riddled neighborhoods, mm-hmm. wearing their FCPO T-shirts, you know, with FCPO all over it. Now, they still, I'm sure, have their guns, right. but they go into these neighborhoods and they just start talking to people and find out what can we pray for you about. And they're praying with the neighborhood.
That's awesome.
They're praying with the neighborhood. We had 2 FCPO members that arrested a burglar in another state. And after they got him to the office, they realized he was a war veteran from Afghanistan, Iraq. Wow. He had been wounded in battle defending our country mm-hmm. and got hooked on painkillers, and he was stealing to support his habit. They treated him like the hero that he was.
Wow.
They took care of him. Yeah, they still had to put him in jail.
Right. But
they ended up presenting the gospel to him. He was saved. They've got him some special help. Another chapter, 2 FCPO officers answered a call. There's a teenage girl there, total poverty. She has a bunch of little siblings, you know, brothers and sisters. At night, she would see to it that they slept in the bed. She slept in the floor. These 2 officers went and bought her a bed. And they tried to do it on the quiet. Mm-hmm. But they told the furniture store guy what they were doing. He gave them a good price. Well, he calls their chief. And then the news was called, and now they provide beds as a ministry to people that need them in their area. Wow. These 2 officers also won an award from their department because of this.
But
this goes on all over the country every day. We're prepared right now to charter our 249th chapter, I believe, across the country.
Well, FCPO is definitely a blessed ministry and blessing others, and that's what it's about.
It is.
Does your organization need volunteers?
Well, sometimes we do, not a whole lot. What we do need are partners. You know, we tell people all the time the gospel's free, but taking it to a lost and dying world isn't. Our ministry is different in the fact that when you look at it as a Christian, mm-hmm. this is a missionary ministry because it's not only to the cops. You know, when we train these cops, then they're going out into the world. What other ministry is there in the world where somebody can pick up the phone, dial 3 numbers, 911, right. and have somebody sent to them at the worst time in their life to minister to them?
Wow.
Other than law enforcement.
Right.
You know, it's a huge missionary ministry to the world.
Right.
And God has created it. God has formed government, you know, and that's why we're there.
Well, I want to thank you for being a part of today and being part of Joy in Our Town. What a blessing you have been today. And I want to thank you for watching. If you want to be a part and get involved in FCPO, please do so. I know you'll be blessed. Thank you for joining us today with Joy in Our Town.